know that you've been very busy. Like you said, you worked in the manufacturing facility, and we know that Subaru has had a long commitment in reducing waste and minimizing waste that goes to landfill. Can you just tell us how you got started with that? I mean, I think you said you were there for a good number of years, and I'd love to just hear how that, kind of evolved over time and your role in that whole initiative.
Yes, so it started really in earnest in 2002. Um, Subaru of Indiana always had a very good ethic about the environment, but in 2002, our corporate office, Fuji Heavy Industry at the time, now it's called Subaru Corporation, but they had come to the plant and they said, I want you to be zero landfill in 5 years. And this was when no one was doing that really. And we didn't really know even how to start. And it's a 4.5 million square foot facility. At the time, there were about 3,700 people there, associates. Now there's over 6,000 of them there, and I think it's about a 5.5 million square foot facility now, and in the heart of Indiana, and and we just didn't really know how to start. So we thought, well, let's start with something we know, and we know about soda pop cans and newspapers and paper and things like that. And so let's start collecting those. So we put out containers and we got these fiber drums from the paint shop that we had chemicals that had come in and we cleaned them up and we painted them. And so everything was color coded. So red was for pop cans, green were for bottles, blue was for paper. And we started telling our associates, this is what we want to do. We want to be the first manufacturing facility to become zero landfill. And so in the cafeteria, we put these huge posters. One looked like a pop can, the other one looked like a pop bottle, and we put them on the walls. And every month we would measure how many that we had recycled, and we would come in and we kind of like that United Way thermometer, and we would put it in there, and people really started getting excited about it. And then we took that money that we got from the aluminum cans and we gave it to a favorite charity that they could choose. And so that really kind of got the conversation started. And then once we got the conversation started, we went to them and we said, in your little, you know, in your little world out here on the manufacturing plant floor, what would you do to change the environment? How would you? Are there ideas that you have? And having worked in production for many years before I started working in compliance, I understand that when you walk in on January 1st, you're going to be you know what you're going to be doing on December 31st. So you're going to have, it never changes. It never changes. And it can be very humbling and despairing sometimes too. So I think giving people that opportunity to express themselves and to say, here's my idea. I would really like to do this. And so they would give us these ideas and then we would implement them and we'd make sure the managers were included on it. And then we would quantify how much was being saved. How much, waste was being saved, how much recycling was being done, how much, if we could, money was being saved. And and then it really started to snowball down the hill. And as we got more and more of these ideas, as more people realized that we were listening to them and that we were taking them seriously, then more ideas started coming in. And we were given 5 years to make that goal of zero landfill. And we did it in 2.5 years. So May 4th, 2004, we sent our last load of material to a landfill. And since that time, we've not sent anything. So I will say when we started in 2004, we were sending about 9% of our waste to Covanta Energy Services for waste energy. And then we really started saying we want to send less there. So what can we do? So then we start directing our ideas towards that kind of reduction. And last I heard, they were sending maybe about 3% of their waste. Some things you just can't recycle. Some things just have to go to energy from waste. But at least you're not putting it in the ground, and you're putting it in a responsible corporation's hands to deal with it. So that's really how it all started and how it's continued. The associates at Subaru of Indiana are the stars of our program. They're the ones who make this work every day. So when we started, we were generating 459 pounds of waste for every car that we built. Today, we're generating 210 pounds of trash or waste for every car that we built. So that 239 pounds of waste reduced is is material that doesn't have to be extracted from the earth, produced, transported, stored, warehouse, used, sent out, paid to be sent out. And so that really is where we really want to be, designing for that sustainability and not having to pull it out to begin with. And then reusing what we can. So we reuse hundreds of tons of material every year, and then recycling the little bit that's left over. You'll never get rich recycling,
Right.
but you're doing it in a responsible way. So you save that money up front by not generating it or reusing it, and then that allows you then to have some money to go ahead and maybe take a few $100s loss on your transportation or whatever to recycle. So it from a financial standpoint, we average about $1.5 million benefit over the cost of the program every year.
The one thing that I do know is what you just explained is not just saying, all right, we have this waste, what do we do with it? You actually figured out a way to reduce it. And that's really what, our whole motto here is we're always trying to encourage people to say, let's not generate waste in the first place. Let's minimize to the extent possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I actually toured your facility a number of years ago, I was very impressed with the way you handled the packaging. You get a lot of parts and materials in, and a lot of that looked like it was reusable and returnable. And I think that had to be a big step for you all. Was that something that helped a lot with the waste diversion?
They're using the reusable and returnable packaging was really very key to reducing some of that waste. We would always get our engine parts in from Japan in metal crates. They were a 4 by 4 foot metal crate, and they were packed with very tightly as they come across the ocean. They were packed with styrofoam and plastics and cardboard, and we would always take that packing material and recycle it here in the United States. And then we would break down those metal crates and we'd send those back, and they would build them back up, put more parts in, and send them back. So we had this uh, way of getting the material back. And one of our associates said, "Hey, why don't we just leave a few of these crates build up, put that styrofoam and cardboard and plastic back in, send it back to them, and let them reuse it?" And we thought, well, we wonder if we can do that. So we studied it. We had to, order a couple more forklifts, hire a couple more people, um, ask Japan how they wanted it back, how they needed it to come back so they could reuse it easily. And with all of that, we had a $1.3 million savings. But and when we talk about the tons of material saved in that, it wasn't that much because we're talking about styrofoam, right? So it was so light that the cost of transportation to send that back to Japan was minimal. And it was just a really good way to do that. One of the biggest projects we had in waste reduction was in our stamping plant, which is the first um, part of the process. And the steel comes in from the steel mills in big coils, and it gets run through like a big cookie cutter is the best way to describe it. The flat steel goes through, the approximate size and shape of whatever they're going to form is cut out. It gets sent down onto a pallet, and then it gets sent to the presses where they form that piece, and then it gets welded into a car. And our associate sat back there said, we thread a whole bunch of this flat steel through the press. We cut it off. That goes out for scrap. Then we start our run and say we're running 200 hoods. And then we get to the end of the run, the end of that coil, or I'm sorry, we get to the end of that run, and we have this extra steel left at the end of the coil, and that's run through the press and goes out as scrap. And so, what if we just more closely approximate the size of that roll to the amount of parts that we're using that we're going to make? And it was one of those moments when I'm sure you could hear the air get sucked out of the room because it was like, oh my gosh, why this is so simple. Why didn't we do this before? And so we started doing that, and we had to work with the steel mills, and um, we save 102 pounds of steel for every car that we make. And that was huge, and think of the energy and the process of extracting steel and getting it transported to the plant. That was just such a huge benefit to Subaru of Indiana, and just a wonderful idea from an associate. And the associates never got paid anything for these ideas, so it wasn't like we were giving them a lot of money for these ideas. It was just something that there was just such a great deal of pride that they took from having this. The president would go out every week. We would go to different sections. The president and the vice presidents, Tom Easterday, and they would allow that employee, that associate, to to tell about their idea and how it was implemented and how they went through the steps and what it saved. And the president would shake their hand and tell them congratulations. And it doesn't sound like a very big thing, like a big deal to all of us, right? But when the Japanese president stands there and shakes your hand, that is huge. And it was so wonderful from my point of view to get that kind of upper management support, because I see in a lot of companies, I've done talks in thousands of companies, and I've seen when the upper management support is there, then you get the line support, the frontline support. So it's a very top directed, bottom driven program, and you sometimes have to squeeze the middle management in between, but they come along willingly, really, when they understand what the directive is for the company and that their employees are really enjoying this and they're seeing the benefit of it. Quality improved, safety improved. So it's really very difficult to measure all the different things that were improved by focusing so like laser focus on the environment. So it's been a really wonderful program for the plant.